most incredible comebacks in NBA Finals history.
Welcome to the Sport Passion Podcast.
He shoots, he scores!
Here is your host, Lars Marendorf.
Hello and welcome to the Sports Passion Podcast. For a long time I promised an interview with someone who's covering the Edmonton Oilers, and I was able to get that interview with Daniel Nugent-Bowman, who's traveling with the team, who's covering the Edmonton Oilers for The Athletic, and who gave a lot of in-depth opinions and analysis about the Oilers, going from what are the benefits of Leon Draisaitl, what does Connor McDavid give the team, how are they compared to each other, if it's a good idea to play them together. There's going to be something about the issues they have at 5-on-5. So I think there's a lot of information in the interview that follows this, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you want to follow me, if you want to follow the podcast, at Lars_Ma is the Twitter handle. And you can follow me wherever you find podcasts, if it is Spotify, whatever, iTunes, wherever you can find podcasts. Just type in Sport Passion and you're going to find the podcast there. And hopefully you like the podcast, and hopefully I'm going to be able to make more shows like this, more interviews like this. Now, after a short break, you're going to have Daniel Nugent-Bowman talking about the Edmonton Oilers. Have fun with it. So I got a lot of questions regarding the Edmonton Oilers, and what I thought of was to bring in someone who is covering the team in depth. And I'm very happy and honored to have now on the show Daniel Nugent-Bowman, who's covering the Oilers for The Athletic. At DNB Sports is his Twitter handle. So welcome to the show, Daniel.
Oh, great to be with you, Lars. It's a pleasure to be on with you, and I hope I can kind of enlighten some of your listeners here. So I'm happy to join you today.
I'm pretty sure you can, because you're covering the Edmonton Oilers, and as you are a first-time guest, could you just describe how you are following the team, traveling with the team, how you are working around the Edmonton Oilers?
Sure. So this is my fourth year covering the team. So my first year was 2018-19 season. A lot has changed in that time. The first year was a little kind of rocky, and coaching change with Todd McClellan, GM firing in Peter Chiarelli, and then obviously in that summer having the kind of the brain trust that's in power now with Ken Holland and Dave Tippett being the coach. So a lot's changed. The team's obviously on a much different trajectory under Holland and Tippett. Obviously, of your listeners' interest, Leon Draisaitl, you're doing tremendously well. So my job is to kind of cover the team from a lot of different angles, but I mostly try to tell kind of unique stories and features on some of the players and some of the things that are going on around the team. As you as you mentioned, I've been traveling a little bit. I've been to 4 of the team's 8 road games to start the year, and just trying to find different stories kind of on the trip that can't necessarily be told at home. So it's been a very interesting start to the year for the team. They're obviously 11-4, doing pretty well, although there's been a little bit of I would say, regression on their most recent road trip heading into their first game back tonight against Winnipeg.
Yeah, and you mentioned Leon Draisaitl, and of course a lot of Germans are interested in the team he plays for, best German player ever in the league. And do you notice that maybe possibly in your question section in the Athletic, because I know you guys take questions in, emails in, so do you notice that there are a lot of people from Germany asking questions about the Oilers?
I haven't noticed, unless somebody actually goes out of their way to say that they're from Germany. I don't know where they're asking a question from, so I haven't really come across too many Germans specifically asking me questions about about Leon. But yeah, there's no question. He just, from the first year that I covered the team when he scored 50 goals on a team that wasn't very good, he's just continued to kind of, I would say, evolve his game and become a better player every year to the point where, he started the year with 17 goals in 15 games, leading the league in scoring, and certainly a huge reason why the Oilers are where they are in the standings right now.
Yeah. For my recent show, I got a question regarding McDavid and Draisaitl, and the listener was wondering, Draisaitl is leading the league, he scored the most goals, but everyone is still talking about McDavid as the best player in the league, and my question would be, is there any competition between those two guys for that, or do they just take their egos low and just say, okay, we got to win together and it doesn't matter who scores?
I would say it's somewhere, in between those two different answers. They're good friends, and they push each other very, very much so. But they're different players. Connor McDavid is very, he goes at Mach speed, and nobody, maybe even the history of the game, that can skate like him. Versus, Leon Draisaitl, who can play different ways, and he, is a tremendous passer. Does some different things, in his game. Very powerful player that Connor can't do. So they kind of work off each other really well. And you're right. I mean, I think they do push each other. Leon can do some things better than Connor. He can shoot the puck better than Connor. Arguably pass the puck better, especially on his backhand than Connor. And I think Connor McDavid likes to kind of. He wants to be the best. He works on his face-offs, another area that Draisaitl, at least until this year, and maybe still is, better than Connor McDavid is. So I think in a lot of ways, Leon is the kind of a barometer for Connor McDavid in the ways that Connor McDavid wants to get better. So we saw earlier in this year, Connor McDavid really trying to work on his one-timer, which is an area that Leon Draisaitl over the previous seasons has really worked on. Draisaitl came into the NHL as more of a playmaker, and is certainly, although he's a very good passer now, still has become a very good goal scorer, leading the league in goals, and using that one-timer, especially on the power play, to his advantage. So, it's funny. And in some ways, I would say Leon Draisaitl is a better player than Connor McDavid, in the fact that he can maybe touch more areas of the game. They do have him penalty killing occasionally, especially on 5-on-3s against, and taking key face-offs, things of that nature. But really, it is still Connor McDavid that gets, when they're not playing together, that is when he gets kind of the tougher matchups from opponents. Is certainly the more kind of electrifying player than Leon, although Leon Draisaitl is certainly no slouch there. So it's a nice problem, if you want to call it that, for the Oilers to have, when you have two guys that are 1A and 1B in the NHL in terms of the offensive capabilities and the scoring race as well. So I would say Connor McDavid is maybe just a peg ahead of Leon Draisaitl overall, but in the way that Leon Draisaitl can touch the game in many facets, he certainly is pushing Connor McDavid and is right there with him for the top player in the world.
Yeah, and it's sure a problem that most other teams would like to have there, with those two guys in one team. And you mentioned something that has changed in regards to past season. They are playing McDavid and Draisaitl on two different lines now. And what do you think would be the best solution for them? Is there a best solution? Is it just dependent on the situation that you have to play them together or play them on different lines? What is your opinion on that scenario?
And so it's an interesting question, and quite honestly, Dave Tippett and his coaching staff have really tried to be creative and tried to be unpredictable with opponents. So I don't have the numbers quite in front of me, but I'd say it's about 50-50 or close to it in terms of how much Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl have played together and how much they've played apart. even when they are on different lines to start games or throughout the course of most of the game, he'll put the two together after a penalty, almost entirely with Jesse Puljujarvi on the right wing, and so to try to catch opponents off guard. If they need a push, if they're trailing late in the game, sometimes Dave Tippett and his coaching staff will throw those two together. At home, when they can dictate the matchups better, I think is when he tends to lean more toward putting McDavid and Draisaitl together. But again, it's a good problem to have because in the past they didn't quite have the depth at forward, especially in the top six. And now you have Jesse Puljujarvi really coming into his own. They added Zach Hyman in the offseason. Kyle Yamamoto obviously hasn't played as well or produced as well as he did in the back half of the 2019-2020 season, but he has started to come on of late and has been a mainstay in the top six. So they do have, before when they put Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl together, there was a huge gap on the second line, and now there isn't. So it really allows the coaching staff to throw a lot of different lines and matchups and whatnot against the opposition, and makes the Oilers harder to defend, among those top two lines. So, it's funny. Dave Tippett was saying that he feels like he has two different players in Leon Draisaitl. When he plays them with Connor McDavid, he's kind of the sniper. He's Alex Ovechkin. Yeah. But when he puts him at center on his own line, he becomes kind of like a two-way force, a power forward, and drives the line that way. So, when you have a player like Leon Draisaitl who can do many different things and be put in different situations, it's a tremendous kind of asset for the Oilers, and that's what they have.
Yeah, and you mentioned the comparison to Ovechkin, and Draisaitl's deadly right now on the power play, where he's just located above the goal line there on his side and scoring there. He just scored 2 goals in the last game against the Jets, and the power play is absurd. Again, 42.6% right now. But something you mentioned in your most recent article is that they have problems scoring 5-on-5. You mentioned the goals. They've been outscored there 36-34. But something else that I noticed is not only the goals, but also when you look at other metrics. When you look at Corsi, they are 15th in the league. They're a little bit above 50%. When you have expected goals, they're 20th, and expected or high scoring chances for a team that has Draisaitl and McDavid on its first 2 lines, they are 23rd in in high scoring chances created at 5-on-5. So that should be worrisome to them, because when I look back at the playoffs, something that is obvious, and it's going to happen this year again, I don't know in which kind of matter and how big the problem will be, but there will not be a lot of penalties called. So there will be less penalties. There will be more 5-on-5 play. And what do you think the team has to do to address those 5-on-5 problems? And have they mentioned something that they want to try to change that?
Well, there's a few things there. I would say, firstly, I don't think they have a problem scoring at 5-on-5. And I don't know if that was in my piece or just want to clarify. It's because they're a high event team overall. Like, they do score very well at 5-on-5, but the defending is the issue. And for a team to have a -2 goal differential at 5-on-5 with those two players, as you mentioned, Mark, like that's a huge problem for this team. And it's not so much in the top 6 because those McDavid, Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has really had a very good start to the year after not doing very well at 5-on-5 last season. Although he hasn't scored much, he's certainly driving play and he has a lot of assists. Nugent-Hopkins does, but it's the bottom 6 that is a big problem for this team right now. It's a little surprising in that they added some guys, Derek Ryan, Warren Fogle, in the offseason to really augment that group. And they started very well, that third line with Zach Cassian, Ryan, and Fogle. but in the last 10 games or so, it's really fallen off. Derek Ryan doesn't sound like he'll play tonight just due to injury, but the last few games he's been demoted to the fourth line. Zach Cassian missed 3 games with a groin injury, and he's back now. So maybe with Ryan McLeod going back up there, he's been recalled or was recalled a little while ago, and getting that third line kind of situated with Vogel and Ryan McLeod and Zach Cassian. Maybe you have something there. There's a little time to kind of figure that out. But yeah, that's been an issue. The fourth line is basically a bunch of guys that are just filling a few minutes, giving the big guys a break. So you're right, that is a massive issue for the team. That they believe that there are 4 key aspects of the game, and that's special teams, power play, penalty kill, and then 5-on-5 play and goaltending. The goaltending's been pretty good, although it has taken a bit of a dip recently. The special teams are remarkable. I mean, the power plays we've already talked about being as good as it is, with Leon Draisaitl playing a key role, and the penalty kill has just been almost as good. It's the 5-on-5 play that needs to improve. Now, I think throughout the course of the year, they do have a little bit of cap room, with being in long-term injury relief because of Oscar Klefbom and a couple other guys as well, and Josh Archibald and Alex Stalock. They have the means to go out and get somebody. I think they will by the trade deadline in the top 9 to augment that group. Also, I mean, there's some defensive issues among the blue line. You have a first year player, although he's not classified as a rookie, and Evan Bouchard. He's played pretty well, but he's been asked to do a lot. The second pair of Cody Ceci and Duncan Keith, they started the year pretty well. They get tasked with a lot of tough defensive responsibilities, and they've fallen off a little bit recently. So, there are some issues in this team. For being 11-4, one of the best teams in the league by points percentage and record. There are some glaring concerns about this team after 15 games that will need to be addressed throughout the course of the year.
And you mentioned goaltending. I've heard that the Oilers might be looking for a goalie on the trade market as well. Mike Smith is out right now. He was great last year. I got to admit that I was not a fan of him re-signing there last year. He proved me wrong. He had a great year there. They re-signed him now, and he's out now, but he's played at the start of the season as well. Do you think that they will look for a goalie? I mean, it's going to be hard for them to do both, a trade for maybe, I don't know, a depth forward, or as you mentioned, maybe trade for a defenseman or trade for a goalie. I think you can't do all, or you can't trade for all areas.
Yeah, I think they probably will be able to do both, depending on what they're able to move out. So if they're able to move out a bad contract, maybe it's somebody like, Kyle Turris doesn't make a lot of money, but that would be somebody that you would think they'd be trying to move. The other one is like putting out. It's all kind of math and hard to know at this point. I mean, like whether or not it would help to move out to Oscar Klefbom, who's an LTIR or what have you. But yeah, I think they will have the means and ability to do both. Obviously, if you're trying to acquire a goaltender, moving out Mikko Koskinen and his $4.5 million salary or salary cap hit would help in that regard. Obviously, you'd have to add a sweetener to do that. But yeah, I think goaltending is an area that they'd like to address, especially, Mike Smith is 39, he'll turn 40 in March. And this kind of seemingly not very big injury that happened in the third game of the season has really been lingering, and he had suffered a setback last week where he had to return to Edmonton. And so, we're into game 15, and he's played parts of 3 games or 3 starts and didn't finish the third one. So that's an issue for sure. Mikko Koskinen has been up and down. He's had some really good games. He's had a propensity to allow some bad goals in games, which has kind of deflated the team a little bit. I think he's an NHL goalie, but do you want to go into the Stanley Cup playoffs with him as your starter? especially when the team is trying to contend? I don't think so. So, that's an area that they're going to probably want to and have to address. Unfortunately, that's a very hard area to try to get better at in terms of acquiring somebody during the course of the year. There usually aren't too many goaltenders available, because if they are, they're not playing well. Their team's not playing well. It's hard to get those guys. I mean, the one guy that I think people are talking about, whispering about it, is Marc-Andre Fleury, just being in a tough situation in Chicago, although they've been a lot better since the coaching change. But it's hard to see exactly who that guy will be, but I think they have a little time to figure that out. I think they have goaltending in the regular season that is good enough, but in the playoffs I'm not so sure. So that's an area that Ken Holland and his management staff will, I'm sure, look to address in addition to that top 9 player, and probably maybe another body on the defense, whether it's a depth guy or what have you. But I think those are the areas that they'll look to improve and try to augment throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, if you want to make a move for someone like Fleury, you probably have to get creative with the salary cap there. Maybe that the team, Chicago in that case, keeps some money on their books, so that would make the trade work there from a salary cap standpoint. But yeah, it's early in the season and there's a lot of hockey to be played. There's going to be probably the Olympic break there as well, so we're going to see what happens there. Last question, and that's coming back to the summer. Dominic Cahoon was playing for the Oilers last year, and I thought that he was out of his, so to speak, let's say skills. He was used out of his skills because he was used in the first and second line, and I thought that he might be someone who would fit pretty good in the third or fourth line there for the Oilers, and you can put him in one of the lines if you want to with Draisaitl once at a time. But he was let go. Was there ever a thought of re-signing him? Do you know why that didn't work out, if they hoped to re-sign him?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, there was no real push to re-sign him. They let him, he could have been qualified as a restricted free agent. Given his stats, there really wasn't much of a concern of him making much more, getting a huge pay raise. It was a question of trying to upgrade, and they basically just decided to let Dominic Cahoon go. So with Cahoon, he was I thought he was a fine player for them, for the Oilers, but he was, I think you're onto something in the sense that he was miscast. He wasn't, a top 2-line player, maybe shouldn't have been. But the thing with Cahoon is they didn't have him on either special team. So the top 2 lines play so much here in Edmonton that if you weren't going to have him on the top 2 lines, then he really wouldn't have played very much. Yeah. And they were really hoping, he generated a bit with Draisaitl. They're really hoping that, past chemistry and their, history together would kind of lead to bigger things. It just didn't really pan out for him, unfortunately. And again, when they wanted to upgrade, basically the upgrade was bringing Zach Hyman for Dominic Cahoon in the top 6. So that was an area that I don't think anyone would look at as saying, being a downgrade. I mean, that was somebody that they really wanted. That was somebody that they targeted, being Zach Hyman, and has played out pretty well for the Oilers so far. So in the bottom 6, they had guys that they wanted to, be better checkers. That'd be kind of, your Warren Fogle types. They wanted guys that would, serve a role. They thought that would be Derek Ryan, his 3rd-line center, to take faceoffs and kill penalties too. They had some internal guys like, Tyler Benson pushing for depth roles and stuff like that. So, when you add all that stuff up, there really wasn't a place for Dominic Cahoon here in Edmonton. It made sense to let him go. But again, as you mentioned, maybe things could have turned out differently had he been put in a different spot. But in saying that, I mean, if you want to make an impact and you get a chance to do it beside Leon Draisaitl, and he, his second most common centerman was Connor McDavid. I think that's a chance that any player would want to take, and unfortunately, it didn't work out entirely for him here in Edmonton, and he got a chance to move on. But it was an experiment worth trying, and to some degree, he had a little bit of success here in Edmonton, but not enough to stick around for the team.
Daniel Nugent-Bowman was our guest today at DNB Sports. He's covering the Edmonton Oilers for The Athletic. If you're subscribed to The Athletic, you can read his work there. Daniel, one last thing I noticed, Honorary Islander. What's that stand for in your Twitter profile?
That's just in Canada, there's a province called Prince Edward Island. It's just a tiny province in the eastern part of the country, and my wife's from there. So the Prince Edward Islanders are very passionate, and they like to you have to be born there to be a true Islander, and so I'm an honorary Islander just because I married into an Islander family.
Okay, great. So thanks a lot for coming on the show, and all the best for you covering the Oilers. Again, a lot of people from Germany are watching and following the team and your work, hopefully. So thanks a lot for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks again.
You're very welcome, Lars, and hope to talk to you again at some point.
Talk to you soon. Thanks for listening. Bye, guys.